Hello guys, how are you? My name is Alexandra. I would like to welcome you to my channel. On my channel, I do a mixture of astrology and dance, and this is a place for me to express myself fully. So if you are into those two things I mentioned, this is the place to be. And today I would like to do an analysis of the transit that is the full moon in Aquarius that will be happening on the 1st of August. And this is quite the intense transit, so you guys need to buckle up. Firstly, there are, how many planets do we have in retrograde? We have Saturn, we have Neptune, Venus, we have what else? Am I forgetting something? Pluto. We have all those planets going on retrograde. That's already intense. And you know, Venus just turned retrograde a few days ago, so that will be also a primary focus for this transit. Now, let's start with the fact that it's a full moon, so it's a time of culmination. It's a time when we unleash our creativity. It's a time we release the ideas that have been cooking within us for the past few weeks. So this is a time where we feel like we have to just let it all out. We have to let those ideas out. We have to let the creativity reign. It's a beautiful time. And in addition, the full moon is in the sign of Aquarius, which rules innovation, which rules our future vision, which rules uniqueness, which rules deviating from the set path and going on, forging ahead on the new path that you have chosen. It rules letting go of inhibitions. So it's like, if you've been feeling inhibited about pursuing a certain vision, about pursuing a certain spark of creativity, about pursuing something new, then this is the time you feel like you cannot be inhibited anymore. You feel like it has to happen, and you'll be experiencing intense emotions about this. You'll be having intense feelings, particularly because the full moon is conjunct Pluto, and you know Pluto rules the shadow. So all these buried emotions will be coming to the fore. If you've been restricting yourself about pursuing your unique path, or other people have been restricting you, or you've been repressing your vision and afraid to live according to how you want to live, all that pain and and discomfort will be rising to the surface. Even anger, if you've been feeling angry about being held down, it will be coming up. And this is a time to transform all of this emotion. It's a time to allow yourself to become the person you want to become, to embrace the ideas you want to embrace, to live how you want to live. You know, another thing right now also is that Venus is also forming a quincunx to Pluto, and this also, it's a similar thing. You know, now Venus is retrograde. We are reevaluating how we want to be loved. We're reevaluating how our self-worth and understanding what is causing us to feel unworthy. We are reevaluating how we want to experience pleasure, how we want to love others, how we want to be loved. And so this also reiterates some of the themes of that full moon. Maybe we've been feeling ashamed of ourselves and not allowing ourselves to be loved enough. We've been giving our power away to people in our relationships, or thinking that we cannot live without the person we're in a relationship with, and hence aiming to control them, or we've been letting them control us because we are disconnected from that inner self-love. So now we get the chance to see how to love ourselves better. This becomes an important theme, and with Venus forming a square to Uranus, we want to experience pleasure in ways we have never done before. We want to experience love in ways we have never done before. We want to experience friendships and relationships and romance. We want to be carried away. We want to experience risks in ways we haven't before. And this is important because this adventure, this striking out into the unknown, is what will help us understand what makes us feel worthy. It will help us understand which activities nurture us. So we'll be able to do things that are more in line with nurture, so we can feel good. It will make us be able to incorporate pleasure more into our lives, because after the adventure, after the risk taking, we'll be able to understand what we should stick with and what we should let go, the people we should be in relationships with and the people who should not be allowed in our lives. Yeah, so another aspect is that Venus is opposing Saturn yet again, and you know Saturn is retrograde. So right now we are seeing the authority figures, the structures in our environments, the people around us that are not loving us the way we want to be loved. How they're inhibiting our expression, how they're withdrawing love from us, how their behaviors are making us feel unworthy, how their behaviors towards us are making us have lower self-esteem. We are becoming aware of how their behaviors hurt us. We're becoming aware of which people to be around instead, who will love us the way we want to be loved, which authority figures we should be around who will feel worthy around because they reflect our value system. So right now, your values, you start understanding that with your value system, you can choose to be around the right kind of authority figures. You can see, okay, in this environment, this is the structure, this is how people behave, this is the kind of rules that are to be followed. Is that in line with how I want to be treated? Is that in line with my self-worth? Is that in line with my value system? I already said that. Is that in line with how I want to experience pleasure? If it's not, then you can think about which kinds of places, with which kinds of rules would ideally be better for you. Because now again, you get to your reevaluating your value system. So you're reevaluating both at the same time. And it's a process, so you need to be patient. The other thing, remember, is that Lilith is forming a conjunction with Venus still. So in this case, it's not just about our femininity or pleasure or self-worth. It's also about the wild feminine, Lilith. It's also about our instincts and how we're letting our instincts guide us. And you know, Lilith is forming, I think it's a quindecile aspect with Saturn. So the quindecile aspect, it's an aspect of obsession. And Saturn is about limits, and it's retrograde, so we are re-evaluating our limits. This is about feeling like the wild feminine within you, the independent woman within you, the instincts you should naturally follow. You feel like they've been repressed for a long time. You know, because of the certain structures you have internalized, the certain limits you have internalized before, the certain people you've been around, the environments you've been around have been repressing that wild feminine. Now you're thinking about how can you incorporate structures that support the expression of this wild feminine, the expression of your instincts in their raw form, in a way that's beneficial long-term. Remember, Saturn is about long-term, your long-term vision, your long-term goals, your career, how you want to be seen. And at this time, Saturn is extremely important because the moon in Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So in this case, these planets forming aspects to Saturn become extremely important in the expression of this full moon, in the unleashing of your creativity. Lilith, the wild feminine, is important. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty and self-worth, is important. And the other aspect we should also be looking at is that Mercury is forming an opposition to Saturn. Mercury rules how we communicate. Mercury rules our thought process. Mercury rules our lower mind. So in this case, you have to really think about, how have you been communicating? Have you been communicating in a structured, organized way? Also, have you been too critical of other people? You've been too criticizing of others and only seeing their faults? Or have you been too critical of yourself, your inner critic? You're always saying negative things about yourself and you're not seeing your true talents, you're not seeing your potential, and you're allowing your creativity to go to waste because you're only looking at the negative side all the time. How have you been getting into dark moods? How are your thought processes leading you to get anxiety and maybe depressed moods and sad moods and being in a sullen mood all the time? Okay, you'll be seeing that, and you have to analyze the structure behind your thoughts, how you are arranging your thoughts in a manner that arrangement, that thought process is leading to sadness, is leading to depressive states, is leading to a lack of confidence, is also harming the people around you because you're always criticizing them. How are these internal structures and limits leading to narrow-mindedness and being unable to accept new ideas, new thoughts, new ways of communication? How is it keeping you stuck in a negative cycle such that you keep sabotaging yourself because you're always thinking negatively? Okay, so there's something of a positive aspect in this case, in that Mercury is forming a conjunction to Mars, and Mars, Mars rules our drive, our ego, how we go after things. So when Mars is with this aspect from Mars, we tend to be more assertive in our communication. Even if there is the planet of limits that is certain, we still we still have some kind of positivity because we are fighting. We are fighting to assert ourselves. We are fighting to assert our goals. We are also with Mars conjunct Mercury, we want to learn a lot. It gives us energy to absorb a lot of information. So if you truly want to change these communication patterns, you'll have the energy to do so. It also gives you the energy to verbally spar with others. If the other people who keep putting you down about how you communicate, about how you think, if they make you feel like you're not intelligent, at least this Mars gives you the energy to be bold about what you think. It gives you the energy to have self-belief in your ideas. Additionally, Mars is forming a trine to Jupiter, which makes you optimistic, which makes you confident right now, which makes you competitive if you use this energy. So the trick is to understand the limits that are coming from the retrograde Saturn, to understand how you want to transform those structures, and then using the energy of optimism, which is coming from Mars trine Jupiter, to go after your goals. So you're transforming all that negativity, all that sadness, and directing it towards the optimism which Jupiter is giving you. And remember, Jupiter is conjunct Uranus. So right now you're having a shift in beliefs, in your belief system. You're having a shift. Some people will have a shift in their religion and change religions to what suits them better. You're having a shift in your worldview. You're having a shift in your higher mind. Jupiter rules your higher mind, your ideals. So right now, with this shifting nature of your ideals, you're more confident to pursue these new ideals you have from the Mars trine Jupiter aspect. You're more confident to fight about those beliefs and what the new and pursuing your new vision. You're more assertive about that. You're more open to competition. Okay, so even if we also have the Mars opposition Saturn, a very tense aspect where you've been feeling restricted by authority figures, you've been feeling restricted about you pursuing your goals. We have that transit where the structures in your environment have been feeling limiting. Even if we have that, at least you can transform that energy. Those feeling the frustrations, you can transform them, because the optimism of Jupiter, that gives you that competitive spirit, that feeling like you can just try again and again. And remember, the structures in your environment, it's up to you to change them. Your authority figures, the limits. Analyze your limits and see how they came about. Are you the one who chose them subconsciously, or did you find yourself in that environment? You can move to a new environment, or you can change how you see your environment. Maybe it's how you approach things that's the problem. Maybe you can approach things better, approach people better with your ideas in a way that they'll be more accepting. Or maybe you can approach new people with those same ideas. So it's up to you. You can change your environment. You can go to another environment. You can change your approach in the current environment you have. It's up to you. You can change bosses. You can change authority figures. You can be the new authority. It's always up to you. I mean, another aspect that we'll be experiencing during the full moon is Mars sesquiquadrate. It's Mars sesquiquadrate Pluto, very long word, 135-degree aspect. So in this aspect, sometimes we overdo things. So in this, especially because with the Mars opposition Saturn, we're feeling limited. We're feeling like the people who don't want us to succeed, our goals aren't going through. this Mars quadrate Pluto aspect can make you want to be more forceful, dominating, controlling, trying to overpower others to a significant degree that is not even necessary. You might just be too shovey and too pushy and not seeing how you're harming others. You're going too far because you just feel like you really have to fight. So you have to count from 1 to 10 and see how you can better handle that situation, okay? Especially with Pluto, use Pluto instead to understand the insights being brought to the fore, understanding the power in your environment, the power structures in your environment, and how you can use that better instead of being overly aggressive and burning bridges, okay? Another interesting aspect we have is the full moon forming a quindecile aspect to Venus. Another very important aspect, because Venus is retrograde also. So right now, you know, with this aspect, people may really want to indulge themselves. They're having big emotions. Sometimes, you know, it really depends on how developed Venus is in your chart. If it's not as well developed, you may fall victim to over-pleasing others just so you can get that love from them. There's a disconnect from internal love, okay? So you think other people are the only ones who can make you feel whole. That is a great misconception, okay? At this point, you need to understand how to pamper yourself properly, how to treat yourself properly, how to have a value system, a self-worth that is reinforcing to your needs, okay? This is not the time to sacrifice your Venus, your desire for pleasure, your worthiness for other people. And it's also not the time to sacrifice your needs for other people. That would not cut it. Again, you have to be careful not to overindulge because you might just want to be pampered. Some people will just want to be pampered. The ones who got a strong Venus, a strong moon, they may just want other people to do the heavy lifting and they don't want to move a muscle. And they don't want to work, they're just feeling lazy, so that's something to be wary of. But then I don't think it will be too much of a problem because the moon is in Aquarius, which is a bit more level-headed, very airy, very detached. So the emotions won't be too intense as we'd expect because there's a cool-headed approach. But again, remember, Venus is retrograde and it is forming a square to Jupiter and a conjunct to Lilith. So we may explore pleasure to an extreme degree. We may really be about being wild and experimenting as much as possible. So have a bit of brain, a bit of control, just a bit. Remember, Lilith is also forming a square to Uranus. So I'm telling you, don't get caught up in just pleasure, being wild and just being free and indulgence because it might sabotage you, which is why Pluto is so important during this time, because you have to pay attention to the shadow it's revealing, the pain, the hurt, the anger, all those negative emotions. You have to be really aware of them, because if you're not, you might sabotage yourself, because you may be pursuing pleasure, but actually you're being led by your inner darkness and your inner shadow, and it's sabotaging you. You know, especially with Lilith. There's this issue with Lilith where sometimes with Lilith is that because there's so much shame from rejection from others, sometimes in the quest for liberation, if you haven't really processed the situation, you may be doing things that are harming to yourself, because there's that internal belief of being bad and unworthy and shame and feeling ashamed. So you might unconsciously be doing things that harm you or that bring you a lot of shame later, but when you're doing them, you don't see it. So really pay close attention to Pluto and the shadow it's revealing, so that you don't sabotage yourself, that you do things in a balanced way, which is why it's an important thing to journal. Write about your pain and your hurt and who you feel angry about. Who are you angry at? Okay, so that you know when you're exploring pleasure and fun, you don't harm yourself. Okay, know who it's directed to and release it in the right way. In addition, this full moon is forming a T-square. Jupiter is square the moon and the sun, and the sun and the moon are in opposition. So Jupiter is very focal during this time, especially because it's conjunct Uranus, and it's about, we're changing our ideals, we're having a shift in our worldview. We're having an increase in optimism, a shift in optimism. So like right now, it's again with the Sun square at Jupiter. We want to experience a lot of expansion. We're optimistic. We want to experience a lot of. We want to do a lot of things. Like we have big expectations, and sometimes we don't really measure how far those expectations are and how to practically make them happen. So that's what you need to incorporate. Think about the vision, the big goals, the big things you want to do, okay, and how are you going to practically make that happen? Mercury is currently in Virgo, so it's a good time to analyze the practicality, the practical aspects, the steps to take. And Mercury, in addition to that, is forming an opposition to Saturn, so it's a good time to incorporate structure into your plans. The same with the Moon. The Moon square Uranus just wants to have big emotions, big feelings, big indulgences, pleasure, goodness, feeling good, food, fashion, shopping, anything that is about feeling good. The Moon square Jupiter will cause that if it's in line with the things you feel you need, or in line with your moon sign. So there's this interesting thing about this current full moon. There's like the inhibitions from Saturn, and then there's the expansion from Jupiter. But if you look at it closely, it's beautiful, because the restrictions from Saturn, especially because Saturn is retrograde, and reevaluating structure. It means if you've had previous limits, you can get rid of them by following the guide of Jupiter, which is allowing your mind to expand, allowing yourself to experience more. And again, the other way around, if you've been on the side of Jupiter, like some people are Jupiter ruled more than their Saturn ruled. If your Jupiter is stronger and you've simply been expanding and doing all these things but not having a practical plan, the aspects from Saturn will make you grounded and show you these structures you've put in place, these rules you put in place are not working. How can we restructure? How can we create a new system that will make sure that you're being practical about it? So, some people will be more affected by the Saturn, others will be more affected by the Jupiter, depending on their chart. And also we're looking at pleasure. We are not just here to restructure. It has to be a restructure in line with feeling good, in line with pleasure, in line with worthiness, in line with self-esteem, in line with our value system. So that's also another beautiful thing. And I would like to mention that Venus quincunx Neptune. So this is a time where we may project illusions onto people, not seeing them for who they are, wearing rose-colored glasses, seeing them for who we want them to be. And this can also especially be a problem if you are suffering from low self-worth. There are some people who, there's their ideal version of ourselves that we want to be, the hero's journey you have to undergo. If you avoid this journey, you start seeing that person you want to be in others. So you're projecting yourself, you're projecting your ideal self onto others. So you're falling in love with yourself in another person. Like, you're projecting who you want to be on another person and then falling in love with them, or being obsessed with them, or making them your friend, but never truly living who you truly want to be, because you've projected it onto another person. And this can happen with this quincunx Neptune, which is why if you have a problem with Venus in your chart or Neptune, you can have this issue of not seeing people for who they are, because you're not really living your fantasy. You have to live your fantasy. You have to work towards being that imagined version of yourself, so that you're not just projecting it. That would be very important. And this is something to do with self-worth. So you have to work on your self-worth. How do you make yourself start feeling good? You have to reevaluate your value system. And also with this aspect, there's an issue with perfectionism. There's what you have imagined in your head about your goals and how you want to experience your life. And at the first moment of trouble, when something happens that blocks your goal, a small limit, you might give up more easily, because you just think it's not perfect yet and you think it won't happen. But you need to stick it out. You need to stick it out with this. And remember, perfectionism does not really exist or if you have that perfect goal, you have to keep pursuing it. You shouldn't give up as fast as you do. And you need to stop wanting other people to fill you up and to make you feel loved. You have to love yourself. You can't expect other people to love you without that internal work. You have to do the internal work. And it's a good time to do it right now, because of that Pluto showing you your shadow, showing you the hidden aspects of yourself, and Saturn restructuring. Just, this is a good time. It's an intense transit. It's intense, but intensity is the beautiful thing. We need to experience intense events. We need to transform ourselves. That's how we create amazing things in our lives. So yeah, with all these Pluto aspects, remember also Pluto is retrograde, so we are evaluating what power means to us, what power means, what is internal power. What does internal power look like to us? What does power from the environment look like to us? What are we seeing as power in our environment right now? What do we view as power from other people? Does power mean money? When other people have money, does that mean power to us? When other people have knowledge, does that mean power? Or when other people have self-confidence, is that how we view power? How do we view power? It's a time to really choose to see, to understand your perception of power. What would make you feel powerful? Is it getting a new job? Is it starting a new hobby? Is it more adventures? It could be anything. Is it dressing better? What makes you feel powerful? It's unique to you. And journals are important. You have to write these things down. You have to understand what makes you feel powerful. Otherwise, you'll just be pursuing things according to other people's ideals, according to other people's systems, rules, according to other people's rules, according to other people's value system. So you have to understand what makes you feel powerful. Okay, so guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this on astrology, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to like, so you can keep seeing all this goodness in astrology. And I wish you the best with your transit, and have a good day. Bye.